The Garden of Eden actually located at the North Pole?
All right, let's see it.
In the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 10, it is mentioned that a river flowed out of Eden to water the garden and then divided into 4 branches: the Pishon, Gihon, Tigris, and Euphrates. Today, we only know the location of 2 of these rivers, and logically, the Garden of Eden should be in that region, right?
Sure, if one insists on thinking this text describes an actual historical reality.
But what about Noah's flood, which changed everything? What if the landmarks were shifted, and what we have identified is actually in completely different regions?
Well, this would be conjuring up scenarios in order to force the data to serve the dogma, but there are issues with this as well. According to tradition, Moses is the one who recorded the text in Genesis well after the flood, and Genesis 2 is speaking about these 4 rivers in the present tense and is even describing where they are for readers in the present. And Cush and Havilah, the locations of the Gihon and the Pishon, are also described elsewhere in the Bible as being in Egypt. And so this conjuring up of scenarios actually has to overlook and contradict the biblical witness elsewhere.
Maps by Mercator from the 15th and 16th centuries.
Mercator was born in 1512, so he was not making any maps in the 15th century.
Depicting the North Pole, show a land with 4 major rivers, geographically similar to what we find in the Bible.
They are not geographically similar. Mercator and everyone who followed after Mercator depicted these 4 rivers flowing inward to a whirlpool at the center that also contained a giant mountainous rock. And this has absolutely nothing to do with Eden. This actually derives from a mythical travelogue from the 14th century called the Inventio Fortunata that was supposed to have been the account of a Franciscan monk from Oxford who traveled to the North Pole and describes 4 different continents surrounding a whirlpool. Now, this text was lost, but it is described in a later text called the Itinerarium by someone from Netherlands named Jacobus Canoyan. And Mercator actually explicitly names Canoyan's text as where he got the information about what he is depicting at the North Pole.
However, on later maps, this landmass completely disappears and is never mentioned again.
That's because the Arctic region would be explored more thoroughly into the 17th century, and everyone would discover there are no such continents up there.
Thus, we do not know, but the Garden of Eden would be potentially accessible on Earth and would be located at the North Pole. However, since the 16th century, governments have removed it from maps to hide it from us.
No, they haven't.